Thank you. I forget. Thanks everybody for attending this planning meeting Tuesday the 14th of June 2022. My name's Councillor June Molyneux. I'm chair of the committee and Councillor Alex Hilton is the vice chair. Please note the committee is being streamed live on YouTube. If you're a member of the public who's registered to speak, you'll have a time limit of up to 3 minutes, and the legal officer will operate a stopwatch and confirm when your time runs out. You're allowed to finish your point and finish off, wind up what you're saying, because if you don't, you'll be muted. For ease, a pack's been prepared which contains reports, plans, presentation slides for each item to ensure you can easily follow the agenda, and that's available online. After officers have presented a report and any speakers have made representations, I will invite members to make any comments. When you want to speak, please raise your hand to indicate to me that you want to speak, and when I invite you to speak, please turn on your microphone. Please turn off your microphone when you finish speaking. If you're speaking, please reference the paragraph page number to enable everybody to follow you. With that, we will move on to the meeting. Any apologies, please?
Apologies have been received from Councillors Gordon France. Councillor Adrian Lowe is subbing.
Yes, good to see you back, Adrian. Can I remind members to turn their phones to silent, please, if you haven't already done so. Any declarations of interest? Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of the matters in the agenda. If you have such an interest, you must withdraw from the meeting. Normally, you would leave the room before business starts to be discussed, but you do have the same right to speak as a member of the public and remain in the room to enable you to exercise that right and then leave immediately. In either case, you must not speak to improperly influence the decision on the matter. Planning applications to be determined. There have been 5 applications withdrawn, so the agenda is not as long as when it was first published. Members will be pleased to know. All registered speakers, for the benefit of the public here tonight, the speaking arrangements for planning applications are as follows. The officers will summarise the report and registered speakers will be invited to speak in the following order: objector, supporter, parish or town councillor, ward councillor, applicant or agent. All registered speakers will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes, apart from a ward councillor who may speak for up to 5 minutes. In the event that all speakers against an application, as chair, I may grant the applicant or representative a time extension. I would respectfully ask members of the public who have not registered to speak to remain quiet throughout the proceedings. With that, we will move on to item 3A. Land to the east of 27 Charter Lane, Charnock, Richard, pages 7 to 84 on your addendum. 7 to 84 on your agenda and an update on your addendum, although the recommendation remains as the original report. There are some additional objections that have been received, which are not valid planning objections, and actually in a lot of people's eyes could be seen as quite offensive and have nothing to do with the application whatsoever. I was quite appalled to read them. But with moving on, I've got the registered speakers: the objector Colette Jolly, parish town councillor Lucy Watson, the ward councillor Arjun Singh and the agent Katie Delaney. Ian, would you present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for 76 affordable dwellings, along with access, parking, landscaping and a surface water pumping station. The application site is located on the western edge of Charnock Richard on Charter Lane, within the settlement boundary, and extends to approximately 2 hectares of mostly flat, undeveloped grassland. Members will recall that the application was deferred at Planning Committee on the 29th of March to enable a committee site visit to the application site. This took place on the 20th of May. As the site is located within the settlement area of Charnock Richard, policy V2 of the Chorley local plan is applicable, which identifies a presumption in favour of appropriate sustainable development, subject to material planning considerations and the other policies and proposals within the plan. The most important policies in the determination of this application are policies 1 and 4 of the Central Lancashire Core Strategy. The previous application, a previous application for 60 dwellings and a shop was refused planning permission on land that included the application site in 2017, mainly due to conflict with Policy 1 of the core strategy. Members will be aware that Policy 1 provides the development plan strategy for the area, setting out the locations for growth and investment across central Lancashire. Charnock Richard is not identified as a rural local service centre, and therefore development in such areas will typically be small scale and limited to appropriate infilling, conversion of buildings and proposals to meet local need, unless there are exceptional reasons for larger scale redevelopment schemes. Both the previously refused proposal and this current proposal conflict with this policy. However, it must be noted that at the time of the previous refusal, the council was able to demonstrate an adequate supply of housing land, which is not the case at this time. Policy 4 of the core strategy sets out the minimum housing requirements for the area. As set out in length in the committee report, recent planning appeal decisions in the borough have demonstrated that the council does not currently have a 5-year deliverable supply of housing. Policy 4 of the core strategy is therefore out of date. The National Planning Policy Framework is clear that where the policies that are most important for determining an application are out of date, planning permission must be granted unless either the application of policies in the framework that protect areas or assets of particular importance provide a clear reason for refusing the development, or any adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against the policies of the framework. This is known as the tilted balance. Policy 1 of the core strategy, which sets out the settlement strategy for the area, is not considered to be out of date. That said, the council cannot demonstrate an adequate supply of housing and the shortfall is significant. Policy 1 of the core strategy therefore forms part of a strategy which is failing to deliver a sufficient level of housing. As such, the policy should only be afforded moderate weight in the planning balance. This approach is consistent with other appeal decisions and recent case law. In relation to matters of detail, the site is mostly species-poor agricultural grassland. However, there are some habitats of local value present, including a pond, hedgerows, trees and ditches. These habitats support birds, small mammals and amphibians. The proposal has been revised since its original submission to retain more hedgerow and provide an increased level of tree planting. Overall, there would be no significant loss of biodiversity and impacts on protected species can be adequately mitigated. In relation to residential amenity, the proposal has been revised since the original submission to change the orientation and layout of one of the 2 apartment blocks in order to avoid a loss of privacy to occupants of existing dwellings on Leeson Avenue. All interface distances between the existing surrounding dwellings and the proposed dwellings are greater than the council's minimum guideline standards and are considered to be acceptable. The development will be of a design and layout that would assimilate with the surroundings whilst making an efficient use of the available land and is considered to be acceptable. There's no outstanding objections from technical consultees. Protracted negotiations have taken place between the applicant and Lancashire County Council as the local highway authority to agree a level of mitigation that would be an acceptable highway safety, result in an acceptable highway safety impact. Full details are provided in the committee report and the measures include the provision of funds for improvements to the local bus service, the implementation of a travel plan, relocating and enhancing existing bus stops, street lighting upgrades, footway improvements and road markings and surfacing. The adverse impacts of the development relate primarily to its conflict with the development plan strategy for the area as defined by Policy 1 of the core strategy, whilst there will be some limited harm through a slight net loss in biodiversity. In terms of benefits, the provision of new housing would bring construction and supply chain jobs, places for the economically active to live, increased local spend and a greater choice in the local market. These benefits are considerable. A relatively large number of affordable homes will be provided, and whilst there would not appear to be a specifically identified need for them in the immediate locality of the application site, there is a significant shortfall across the borough. It's clear that the proposal would support the supply of housing in a situation where there is no 5-year supply and an under-provision of affordable housing. As a result, moderate weight can be given to the economic benefits, whilst significant weight can be attached to the social benefits in the planning balance where the tilted balance has already been engaged. In summary, there is a conflict with Policy 1 of the core strategy and the development plan overall, although the site is located within the defined settlement boundary. Policy 1 forms part of a failing strategy as the council cannot demonstrate an adequate supply of housing. As such, the policy is only afforded moderate weight. Whilst it's acknowledged that there will be some adverse impacts from the proposed development relating to the conflict with the development plan and the slight loss of biodiversity, these would not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the considerable economic and significant social benefits that the development would provide. As such, it is recommended that the application is approved, subject to conditions in a Section 106 legal agreement to secure the affordable housing and financial contributions for the travel plan, improvements to the bus service, public open space and additional secondary school places. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Ian. Colette. Yeah, press the button, please.
Good evening and thank you for allowing me to speak once more on behalf of the residents. To begin, I'd like to clarify that we are not averse to development. On the contrary, we welcome development which is plan-led, meets a local small-scale and infill policy, and importantly, development that is sustainable. This development of 76 dwellings in this location and on this site, which has not been previously identified for development, is not small-scale. The development will increase the core settlement area and population of Charnock by 20%. How is this small scale? The character of the village will be forever changed. Given only 2 households on the housing register have listed Charnock, it also does not meet the demands or needs of the community either now or in the future. As a reminder to members, Charnock Richard is a small rural village with no basic services and an aged and overstretched infrastructure. There is no convenience store, no GP surgery, no dentist, no pharmacy, no post office. The neighbouring village of Coppull is the nearest location for these everyday basic services, 3 kilometres away. Public transport is and will be woefully poor even with the applicant's meagre contribution. The limited bus route doesn't even go to Coppull. Walking is not a practical or inclusive alternative, given it would take 40 minutes each way at best, clearly above the 20-minute neighbourhood requirement. So how will residents access basic services? How will they get to the doctors? How will they get to the shops? How will they get to work? What will residents do after 8 p.m. when the hourly bus service stops if the baby needs milk or nappies? Access to a private vehicle is therefore essential. Encouraging the use of private vehicles is not only contrary to planning and climate change strategies, it will result in those without access to a vehicle being isolated, harming those who are already disadvantaged the most. Given the soaring cost of living and the escalating cost of fuel, actually expecting new residents who are on low incomes and who are desperate for housing to be able to run a private car to get to work, get the children to school or to access basic services is unfair and unreasonable. There could be 120 children from this development, assuming no social housing under occupancy. The schools are already full. Where will they go? Where will they play? The only open green space in the development is limited and is at the site entrance next to the road. The nearest play park is over 800 metres walk away. Real people need access to real services and amenities. The need to rely on private vehicles will exacerbate traffic volume and congestion on narrow village roads serving childcare settings and will significantly heighten the risk of serious, if not fatal, injury. Why make a bad situation worse? The disruption and disturbance from noise and dust created, even with a construction plan, would be intolerable, unbearable and detrimental to physical and mental health, particularly to the children of the directly neighbouring primary school. How will they learn or enjoy fresh country air with the relentless noise and dust from the site less than 100 metres away from their class? I therefore ask the members of the committee to make the right decision and refuse this application.
Perfect time. Thank you. Lucy, would you like to make your representation? You want to go now? Whenever you're ready.
Good evening and thank you to those of you who attended the site visit to see Charnock Richard for yourself. The Parish Council hope that you have now seen for yourselves the real issues regarding traffic, congestion and safety matters that our small village contend with daily. There have been hundreds of comments from concerned residents at Parish Council meetings, at the Residents Association meetings and on the planning portal. However, none resonate with the addendum comments, nor are these publicised on the portal. The type of housing is not the issue. However, given the density of the proposal and the fact it would represent 20% of the whole village, it should provide basic provisions in an area that has none. If a public consultation was held, it would have been noted that Charnock Richard are not opposed to building, but developments must be of the right type in the right place that do not put strain on services and that offer amenities that do not rely wholly on the use of a car. This site was proven unsustainable for that very reason. In fact, it was refused for more houses on less of the land. Paragraph 143 of the main report refers to the previously refused application. The 90 dwellings referred to was in fact 60. The actual comparable proportion was only 38 dwellings plus shop, green space and parking. 76 is therefore double the previously refused amount. 76 is neither small scale nor infill. Does a housing target render core strategy totally null and void? These same targets that are being challenged by the leader of Chorley Council. A housing target couldn't possibly overturn decisions which deemed this very same site unsustainable for less on more of the land, nor should it be given more weight than the council's commitment to sustainable development. Nothing has changed, yet every effort has been made to prove otherwise without substance. The previously refused site has not changed. No exceptional circumstances are demonstrated. It is contrary to the core strategy and it does not provide basic services needed for residents old and new. This site was proven and still is unsustainable. It would be no kind of success to simply hit a target if the homes that are built are in the wrong place, don't have the infrastructure required and are not contributing to communities. I trust the committee will assess the full facts, what they have seen for themselves and listen to the concerns of the residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
So, thank you for allowing myself to speak as ward councillor. Over the past few months, I have listened to hundreds of residents of Charnock Richard and how they feel about this planning application and development. So I am here to represent the residents and to voice their opinions in supporting them with the movements against this application. Using my first-hand knowledge of the area, I've noticed the following points. 1. As mentioned throughout this planning application, the use of Mrs M's Village Pantry as a local shop to do your shopping. If you look on Google and search Mrs M's, it's closed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. How is that justified? If it's closed more times in the week than it's open, surely that can't be justified as a local resource and to keep this site sustainable. Secondly, just to build on that, as it's been mentioned before, there's no post offices, there's no GP surgery, there's no dentist, no pharmacy within a 20-minute comfortable walk of this site. Secondly, as noticed by the Planning Committee on this site visit on 20th of May, the roads were very much single-use lanes. Charter Lane, Church Lane and Chorley Lane, they're all very busy throughout the day. For example, on the site visit, members will remember there were children using the roads to pass other members of the public. There was traffic building on Church Lane and Charter Lane right outside the school, literally metres away from the school, which isn't safe for children. It's not safe for any resident. There was even HGV drivers using the road when it states clearly that it's unsuitable for them. Thirdly, on paragraph 109 on the National Planning Policy Framework 2012-2019, it states development should only be permitted or refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on the highway safety or the residual cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe. In the up-to-date 2021 National Planning Policy Framework, this is now paragraph 111, Therefore, I believe this application is unacceptable because the proposed development would have an unacceptable impact on highway safety by virtue of the increased traffic movements and inadequate highway infrastructure. Secondly, the potential noise nuisance and disturbance associated with the increased vehicle traffic movements that would be generated throughout the use of the development are likely to be a harmful impact to the amenity of the residents in the locality. Not to mention it will hurt on people's mental health at the end of the day. So just to close off, I would urge the planning committee members to take on board the points mentioned throughout this meeting tonight in making their decision. Being the ward councillor, I personally believe that at the end of the day, with any application, the most important factor is the residents and how it's going to impact them, which I hope you take on board. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Casey, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again on this item.
Need to start the timer.
My name's Katie Delaney. I'm a director at Mayburn Planning and I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant. Yeah. As I say, I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant Conlon Holdings. I don't wish to repeat what officers have already comprehensively reported to members, although there are some matters of relevance to address. In terms of the highways concerns, consultees have confirmed that our submissions are robust and do not require any further assessment or survey work. Any parking at the school, which members may well have witnessed on their site visit, passes quickly, and it's accepted by and recognised by inspectors and county highways as being a short term. The high need for affordable homes in the borough is still present. There are 1,600 families on the council's waiting list, and the need is acknowledged in both appeal decisions and the strategic housing study. This is a borough-wide need for which sites across the borough can meet, including Charnock Richard. There are no specifically allocated sites or locations elsewhere in the borough, and the delivery to date across the borough is not meeting this need. There appear to be a number of assumptions made by the residents about the future occupants and some inconsistencies in their written submissions to the application. They set out significant concerns about high traffic levels, parking congestion and highway safety issues. However, they go on to state that the future residents of the proposal site would have limited access to cars and would be reliant on public transport due to their presumed limited means. The proposed development seeks to accommodate house types to suit a range of families and ages. It is likely to be a mix of shared ownership and affordable rent, where many residents are likely to be working and to own or have access to a car. The government's aim to boost the supply of housing is to encourage all types of homes. Some comments from the Residents' Association appear to be concerned with the fact that this scheme is 100% affordable. As members will be aware, even if this were a market scheme, 30% of the homes would be affordable. The borough need for affordable homes is clear, and there is no policy requirement that differentiates from market homes or requires such housing to be located within a short walking distance of shops, doctors or other facilities. Officers and consultees have confirmed that there are no technical objections, no severe impacts, and that a range of benefits are provided by the scheme. And these include the efficient use of land within the settlement boundary, jobs during the construction via Conlon, and existing local developer and employer who are committed to delivering a high-quality development at this site. Over £600,000 in financial contributions towards open space, sports pitches and school places, as well as bus improvements in the local area. All of these will benefit the wider community as well as the future residents of the proposal site. And as such, we would kindly request that members support the officer's recommendation and grant planning permission this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on anything, Ian, or okay? Over to you, members. Councillor Hilton, Councillor Whittaker.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just glad to see that the developers finally given correct information to the committee. We were provided with incorrect information to the committee last time and had to pull the application at short notice, which was unfair on the officers, the consultees and, of course, the residents that made an effort to attend the committee. So thank you for that. I don't think we can make any presumptions about the future residents living in this development. And I'm really glad to hear that the residents of Charnock Richard are not against development overall. Charnock Richard isn't immune from development, and nor should it be considered to be so, but it does have to be appropriate development. We do need to be mindful that the council currently cannot demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing, so national policy is really clear on this, and unless there are any adverse impacts that would outweigh the benefits, we have to actually approve this. So we are kind of stuck in a situation where the weight is significant towards development. Policy 1 of the Central Lancashire Core Strategy is out of date, and there are many recent planning decisions that have gone against the council. We don't have any objection from any statutory consultees here, including LCC Highways. So there is a huge amount of balance in favour of development here. However, development should not come at any cost. I fully sympathise with the residents in terms of the scale of this development, and I think you're quite accurate in your observation about small infill development possibly being more appropriate for Charnock Richard. The infrastructure currently isn't there, but you could argue that if we were to have development, that would actually attract the infrastructure such as shops and doctors' surgeries. So this is a difficult one to judge. As Councillor Singh has so well put, I am concerned about the traffic here as well. I'm looking at the traffic survey in terms of the speed. Now that we've got an accurate time of when that was done, i.e. during school holidays, LCC is stating that actually cars go faster because there's not the congestion there. But from my observation on the site visit, what I was seeing was one-way traffic. Cars were stopping, other cars were coming ahead, seeing this car stopping and actually accelerating to then allow them to go through to try and reduce the congestion. So I actually saw quite the opposite of what LCC are saying there. So I am concerned about that. I'm also concerned that the traffic survey, in terms of the overall survey, that was done 6 years ago. Things have changed since then. They may have got worse, they may have got better. We just don't know that. There are generally more cars on the road than there probably were 6 years ago, and there probably would be a lot more cars on the road if this development were to go ahead. It's not often I come into committee where I am truly undecided until the debate. I come in with an idea, I go in the debate and look at where we go from there. I am undecided as yet, and I need to see how the debate goes before I can make a decision. I just think this is very, very finely balanced, and I would urge councillors to look at all the information given today by the objectors, by the residents, and of course the officers. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. Councillor Whittaker.
Thanks, Chair. I'm reminded, sorry. Was I on? I was on. I'm reminded of what the late Jack Wilson once said. If planning was an exact science, we wouldn't need planning officers and we wouldn't need planning committees. Because it isn't an exact science. And you've heard from residents who live in Charnock Richard. Crucially, in my view, Charnock Richard, whatever the structure plan and all the plans that you talk about, was not designated as a rural local service centre, unlike some of the other villages in the surrounding areas like Euxton, like Coppull, where developments were encouraged and services, doctors, schools were provided. And Charnock Richard is not like that. The previous one, as was referred to, for 60 houses, was refused on that basis. Now, at that stage, as Alex said, we maybe had a 5-year supply. And in a way that's important. In a way, it's not important. It's issues like school numbers. I used to be chair of Lancs Education, and I read with interest this document that Education Contribution Assessment, which, as was said, put some things. And it talks about the availability of school places within a 2-mile radius. Radiuses, when I went to school, were straight lines. They're not. We're not talking about availability we're talking about availability of places, and some colleagues around the table will know that are identified as having availability. Duke Street in Chorley, St Gregory's, Balshaw Lane, Gillibrand, Chorley St Mary's, Chorley St Gregory's, as options for schools because the local school is full. Heskin School is full. At the moment, a lot of the schools in Coppull are full. The Education Authority quite optimistically refer to, well, we are aware of a falling birth rate and there might be more places available in 5 years' time when these houses are built or when the children are ready to go to school. It's speculation. It's not based on facts that we can measure. They talk about, the traffic was referred to, about an improved bus service running along Chorley Lane, I think, once every hour, to get people to wherever they want to go. I'll come to the shops in a minute. But somewhere in that thing, it says in the documentation from the Highway Authority, which is really quite bizarre, it says, maybe in 5 years when the bus service is running, it will become more popular, more well used. Well, it might well be. On the other hand, it might well not be, because what's happening after 5 years? Maybe the bus service will stop. It relies on cars, and cars, as Alex has alluded to, are the Highway Authority. And we talk about shops. There was a shop, the shop's alluded to, and the applicant alluded to a shop there. It's a pantry. You can imagine what a pantry is. It's a small little shop that's open 2 days, 3 days a week. So it's not going to be the sort of place that, in my view, that people who are looking for affordable houses will look. They'll be looking to get into a supermarket, which on the previous application it was listed was 3 kilometres away. Now then, how are they going to get there? There's no bus service there. They're not going to walk. It's crazy. The other thing we talk about, and I think the applicant said there were 6,000 or 600 or so many people on the housing list for Chorley. My understanding is that there were 400 people on the list. 2 of the applicants have identified Charnock Richard as the place they would like to be. 2. When we talk about schools, I'm going back to the schools. 76 houses, 2, 3, 4 bedroomed houses. How many kids? Again, speculate. You can. How many do you want? 2 a house, 4 a house, 3 a house, whatever. The County Council Education Authority is not providing any additional school places, and they are providing, would you believe, 4 secondary places at Holy Cross, which is across the significant way away, and Albany, which is on the way out to Adlington. So there's not a lot of comfort to be had from what the Highway Authority, the consultees that Alex has referred to, the things. When we went on the site visit, those of us who went on the site visit, and I was gobsmacked because I use that road quite a lot as well. It was virtually gridlocked. There's a nursery school adjacent to it. There's some senior citizens accommodation. There's a school which is a one-form entry primary school with a fairly dangerous bend just at the end of it. And as we were there was a big truck coming down and everything had to stop. So, a lot of what we've seen in this report is about speculation. It talks about the birth rates will fall, the buses will be popular, schools may not be able to accommodate, they may not choose to accommodate the extra kids. That's a matter for the schools to decide. Paragraph 109, and it refers to highway grounds. Unacceptable input on highway safety or the residual cumulative impact on the road services will be severe. I think that's absolutely crucial. It's one of the reasons that the application in Whitley Woods was not overturned. Our recommendation was for refusal, and the inspector said that, and it was done on the basis of fiery grounds. This application is not sustainable. It's not sustainable, however you want to look at it, in terms of the impact on the village, the lack of facilities, doctors, that's been referred to by residents. And for that reason, I think, and I hope members, and I make the proposition, Chair, that this application is refused. Thank you. Sorry for going on too length, Sir Chair.
Okay. Anyway, Councillor Heaton.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with my colleague, what he just said, because this development is definitely not sustainable for a range of reasons. It does not satisfy the lush economic or environmental objectives specified in the national framework. The site is not sustainable for proposed development for many reasons, including but not limited to health, social care, school places, convenience, shopping, and the need to access the site by car. That's starters. Councillor Whittaker said most of the things I was going to say, but we're getting down to basically the shortage of housing land. This is the reason it's being approved. But the sites that we lost on appeal were safeguarded land. They were sites in our local plan. This site is not in our local plan. It's a windfall site. It's not the same. I feel it's not the same category of application. So on that reasoning, I don't think if we go to appeal, we'd lose. I think we have a good chance of winning. Because there is a previous one, it was down in, I think it was in the report, the court appeal against Cladman clearly states that just because we don't have housing supply numbers, that all our local policies and plans should be deemed out of date. So I feel that, and I'll second Councillor Whittaker's proposal for refusal. I think we have a good chance of winning an appeal. And the residents, if don't be frightened, the residents will be there to see it is done.
Thank you, Councillor Heaton. Anybody else wish to comment? Yes?
Thank you, Chair. It's given me a bit of a headache reading through all this for several weeks, to actually pay it justice and pay justice to the residents that are in this room today. And I've been doing a little bit of reading around it. And I've been reading an article from James Jamieson, the chair of the LGA, who has campaigned rigorously for building the right houses, quality homes, in the right places, and he is the one with the appropriate infrastructure. And I do not see that this has the appropriate infrastructure. 70 plus houses are a lot of houses. And I can commend the residents for saying they're not opposed to development, but the numbers. Somewhere amid all this, I've read that the children can walk to school. Who dictates that the children walk to school? If you're working, you put them in the car and you drop them off at the school. You're adding to the already existing traffic problems. There is an issue with school places. There is a local store. That really hits your pocket, and especially at times that we have at the moment, how everything is so expensive to actually go to a local store and buy a lot, it really does hit your pocket hard. Any parent who has young children knows that they usually become ill after 6 p.m. and trying to find a doctor. We don't have a 24-hour A&E in Chorley. We have to go to Preston. And that alone is really, really difficult for parents. So it is really the infrastructure and the number of houses that I'm opposed to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I might jump around a bit here because I've got highlighted paragraphs all over this document. Unlike Councillor Alex Hilton, I possibly did come in to committee, not this meeting, but the first time this came around with a bit of a view on this application. I was generally supportive of it. However, I did go on the site visit, and it was plain to see that all of us on that site visit were quite shocked at the volume of traffic, not using the road, but parked on the adjacent junction and on Charter Lane, which renders the road single carriageway. For the period of time, I would say, when schools are the kids are entering school and nursery, and when parents are picking up. We as a planning committee cannot dictate to parents that their children should be able to walk to school and they will walk to school. That is not a planning decision. That is a parent's decision. If they choose to drive their children to school, then so be it. I'd much prefer them to see them walk, but we can't dictate that, I'm afraid. That was my view then. My view has changed significantly since then. I've read the documentation over and over again, and it comes down to this balance of weight and what we see as significant economic benefits. The applicant puts forward that these are the efficient use of a piece of land, they are jobs while the houses are being built, these are high quality development. I will stretch to say that the houses that are shown are good looking houses, but I have not seen many high quality affordable housing developments, but I will wait to see that Conlon Homes can do that. That is my concern, that I don't see any of those as significant economic benefits that outweigh the harm that this will cause to the village of Charnock Richard. As stated, this isn't a safeguarded piece of land. This is a windfall site. As stated in the documentation in policy 1 of the core strategy, the application site is not within the area that has been identified for growth or investment. The only types of development that will be considered acceptable in smaller villages such as Charnock Richard will typically be small scale, limited to appropriate infilling, conversion of buildings, etc. I'm going to refer to another paragraph within the documentation, and this is paragraph 68, and this is where we talk about tilted balance. We know in Chorley that we don't have a 5-year housing supply, and tilted balance does come into the debate, and it comes into the question of how much weight it carries. But there is one statement in there which I think is significant. The tilted balance, in particular the effect of footnote 7 in this case, where there was not a 5-year housing supply of land, was simply to trigger paragraphs 11D, and that it did not necessarily render all policies out of date. Now, it is also noted that it is up to the decision maker and the decision makers to consider which weight is given to each policy in these matters. We are the decision makers, and so are the planning officers. Planning officers have stated, quite rightly, they've looked at all the information in front of them, that the application should be approved based on the information submitted. However, I'll refer to paragraph 111, which is on highway safety, and this is my biggest concern, to be perfectly honest with you. Policy BNE1 states that stipulates that planning permission will be granted for a new development, including extensions, conversions and freestanding structures, providing that the residual cumulative highways impact of the development is not severe and it would not prejudice highway safety, pedestrian safety, the free flow of traffic, and would reduce the number of on-site parking spaces to below the standards met. Now, this is us speaking against the LCC recommendations, which we've done on many occasions, I'm afraid, and I don't like to say that. But I'll refer to the LCC conclusion, which is in paragraph 155, where they state that LCC Highway Service have raised no objection to the proposal subject to the applicant agreeing to carry out the mitigation measures listed below. I don't find the mitigation measures are suitable in this instance, and I'd quite happily rule against them in this instance. So the last thing I want to do is come in here and add additional weight to our planning officers' burden of responsibilities, but I feel that we must move to appeal on this one. And I will second and third Councillor Heaton and Whittaker's proposal to refuse it.
Thanks, Councillor Boardman. Councillor Beaver, then Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to go over anything that anybody else has said, but on page 11, there's a nice diagram there of what the site's going to look like, and it looks very good. And it's right next door to the school, and as we've touched on, no one's going to go there. If you pick this up and put it somewhere else, it would be perfect. To me, the only thing that's swaying this is whether we do or don't have a 5-year plan. And I don't believe that the failings of the council, if that's the right word, to provide a 5-year plan should hinder the residents, and more importantly, not so much more importantly, equally importantly, the residents that are going to come. To lock them into a situation with the highways, with no public amenities, and then the dangers to the road, particularly with schools, that they've got to travel to it, I don't see how we can support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, just briefly, Chair. It's just going back to what Councillor Boardman's just said. You could almost argue that BNE1 is out of date. However, paragraph 111 of the latest National Planning Policy Framework is not out of date, as Councillor Singh alluded to earlier. So I think if we're looking at highways grounds, I think we need to concentrate mainly on paragraph 111 of the National Policy. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Morwood.
Thank you, Chair. I've been listening and I'm still not decided. I still think it's finely balanced. The balanced weight is still in towards the development. And I've just written 1 or 2 questions of my own to sort of get my thoughts together. You know, the residents would welcome housing. So what is an acceptable number? Would it have been the 60 previously, which we refused because at the time we had plenty of land, plenty of housing, but now we haven't. We've not got the land, we don't have the 5-year plan, and the government tell us we've got to build X number of houses, and we are in that situation where, you know, between a rock and a hard place. So what would be an acceptable number? What about the free flow of traffic? There is no free flow of traffic now, so I'm not sure that there's going to be much difference. To be perfectly honest, if I was coming out of that development, I'd turn left. There was no way I'd be going right and then right again, because it's a bottleneck. In fact, you wonder why people actually live in Charnock, Richard, because the traffic is horrendous, the congestion is horrendous, the safety issues are diabolical, there's no shop, there's no doctor, the schools are full. You wonder why they want to live there. Because it's a nice place. And that's why other people might want to live there too. And there may only be 2 who say they want to live there at the moment in terms of affordable housing. But that's probably because they're thinking, well, there's no chance of getting to anywhere like Charnock, Richard. That's not for the likes of us, but of course it's for the likes of anybody. And there's a whole range of houses in that development. Flats, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, bungalows, all sorts. And will those whole range of residents will contribute to the life of Charnock, Richard, I'm sure. But I still don't know whether we should or shouldn't. I'm inclined to accept the recommendation, but I know another time, another place, we would throw it out. But I just can't find the genuine reasons, planning reasons to do that. And as I say, at the moment, it's a finely balanced decision, but I think the weight is still towards the development and the recommendation. Thank you.
Any more order before I move to the vote? I'm going to let Councillor Lowe in first because he's not spoken yet. Councillor Heaton.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, as a substitute member for tonight's proceedings, I'm coming with a fresh pair of eyes, and I've listened intently to the debate. I just wonder, it is finely balanced as far as I'm concerned, but just for clarification for my benefit and presumably every other member of committees, whether Councillor Whitaker could just clarify his moved refusal. I'm just wondering what specific reasons, if you could just give me a bit more information before I vote accordingly, Chair. Thank you.
Alex is... Right. Alex has talked about highway grounds and road safety. I read paragraph 109 of that thing, which talks about unacceptable impact of highway safety or the residual cumulative impact on the road system if it will be severe. So that's one issue. I think that's sufficient issue. It was sufficient issue for the inspector not to overturn the decision in Whitley Woods. But there are also other issues about weighting and the balance that we have to give to the other issues of...
Specific reasons for refusal.
Well, infrastructure, not sustainable, things like that. I can't use the planning officer's terms like that, but it's not sustainable for the reasons that everybody has said, Chair. Schools, facilities, highways, how far do you want to go?
Thank you, Chair. The policies to go against this, the recommendation are obviously policy 1, the core strategy. Policy 3, travel. That's on the core strategy as well. Chorley local plan, policy V1, sustainable development. Policy HS4A, open space requirements. There are none on this application. Policy BNE1, design criteria for new developments, the density with no open space. So that's 4 reasons for refusal.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Boardman, very quickly, and then I can move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I've forgotten to do it now. What I'm going to do, we're going to adjourn for a couple of minutes just to sort out exactly the grounds for refusal that we can put to committee. And then that we've got them specific. Okay? Correct. Right. So, what we'll do, we're going to read out the reasons for refusal, please.
The proposed development would have cumulative impact on highway safety that would be severe and would exacerbate existing highway safety hazards. Contrary to paragraph 111 of the NPPF and policy BNE1 of the Chorley local plan. The proposed development is contrary to policy 1 of the Central Lancashire Core Strategy 2012. The application site is not within an area that has been identified for growth and investment. The only types of development that will be considered acceptable in smaller villages, such as Charnock Richard, will be typically small scale and limited to appropriate infill and conversion of buildings and proposals to meet local needs. The proposal does not meet any of these criteria. No exceptional reasons have been put forward to support a larger scale development scheme.
Okay, so I've got a proposer and a seconder for that. Do I have any alternative proposals? If not, I'll move to the vote. Right, so we're voting on that on your microphones. Yes. When your names come up.
Please press green if you're in favour of that.
All those in favour, those against, or abstentions?
To voice your vote, Councillor Boardman, and I will check it next time.
We have all these things. We're sent to try it. Okay. Okay?
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. The members have voted in. So members have voted for the amendment to vote against officer recommendation, and the recommendations for refusal are or have been outlined as before. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine, thank you. Okay. Thanks for your forbearance. It's been a long debate, but very useful. Anybody who's come just for that event, please feel free to go now. Unfortunately, we have to stay. to read this bit again. For the benefit of the public here tonight, speaking arrangements will be as follows. Officers will summarise the report and registered speakers will be invited to speak in the following order. Objector, supporter, parish town councillor, ward councillor, applicant or agent. All registered speakers will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes, apart from a ward councillor who may speak for up to 5. The legal officer will a timer, and when that sounds, you could wind up, please, because if you don't, your microphone will be muted. In the event of all speakers are against an application, I may grant the applicant or representative a time extension. If you've not registered to speak, could you remain silent throughout the proceedings? And with that, we'll go on to item 3B. Land between Pear Tree Lane and School Lane, Euxton, pages 85 to 116. Recommendation remains the same as the original report. Amy's going to present this item. I have 2 registered speakers, the objector Robert Bryce and the agent Alexis de Paul. Amy, can you present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Outline planning permission has already been granted at appeal for the erection of up to 180 dwellings, with all matters reserved except for the means of access to the site. The principle of residential development has already been established and is not a matter for reconsideration. The application seeks approval for the details of the reserved matters relating to the erection of 131 dwellings, and reserved matters applications will come forward in the future for the custom and self-build plots. The application includes the details of appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. Details of a number of conditions on the outline have also been submitted to meet the requirements of conditions attached to the outline permission, and these have been set out in the officer report. 49 representations have been received which cite various objections, and a summary has also been provided in the committee report. It should be noted that no objections have been raised by technical consultees. The submitted plans show the layout of the site, which has taken into account the natural features such as hedgerows, trees and the pond on site to create an attractive environment. Open space and a local equipped play area would be provided, and the density of development is considered appropriate. A hierarchical road structure would be provided with the proposed dwellings in parcels of development around the secondary roads and access ways. A variety of house types are proposed, and they would be of a simple contemporary design with features to provide visual interest in the street scene. In terms of the impact on Hoghton House, a Grade 2 listed building, the separation distance from the nearest plot to the listed building and the additional landscaping would help to alleviate impacts on this listed building, but would not eliminate complete harm to its setting. However, the harm would be at the lowest end of the less than substantial scale, and the benefits of the scheme outweigh this harm. This is consistent with the conclusions of the inspector in the appeal decision. The proposal generally complies with the Council's guidelines for interface distances, and there would be no acceptable impact on neighbouring dwellings as a result of loss of light, overshadowing, overlooking or loss of privacy. 30% affordable housing would be provided on site in accordance with the requirements of the outline planning permission, and would accord with the requirements of Core Strategy Policy 7 with a range of 2 and 3 bed house types to meet the affordable housing need. Other issues relating to highway safety, ecological interests, flood risk and drainage are also considered to be acceptable. It is recommended that the application is approved, subject to condition and the signing of a supplemental legal agreement to ensure that the reserved matters application is bound by that agreement. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Have I got Robert, please?
Yes.
Right, I think it's on at the moment. Yes. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank members of the committee for giving me this opportunity to address you. In fact, I was invited or asked if I wanted to address you, and I answered in the positive. So I'm grateful for that. First of all, on behalf of the residents of Euxton, I'd like to express the disappointment at the way the outline planning application was granted. In particular, permission was granted with contrary to the existing local plan. It's considered that that was a very undemocratic way to deal with matters, and there was a great deal of concern in Euxton at that. Now, the position we're in now, of course, is that outline planning permission has been granted, and that can't be set aside in any way. I fully appreciate that. What the committee can do is, so far as possible and reasonable, seek to mitigate the effects of the proposed development upon residents. Now, I came here tonight with a number of matters to raise, and I was placed in a room with 3 representatives of the applicant. I'm not sure whether it was deliberate or not, but we did have some discussions, and most of the matters which I intended to raise have been dealt with by discussion. First of all, one of the matters I was concerned with was that the proposal seems to provide for building over the sewer which serves Hoghton House Farm, which I am a joint owner and resident, and the adjoining property at called Lady Mac, the old converted barn. I'm told that United Utilities have no record of there being a sewer there, and it may be a private drain, but in any event, I've received assurances that this will be looked into by the applicant, and steps will be taken to ensure that the building work does not in any way interfere with the existing sewer. I've also had a discussion about screening. I've had promises to chop down dead trees, and that the screening will be trees and not fences. I think the only other matter that I wanted to raise specifically was that is that my time up?
Just finish off that point.
Just finish off the point, yes, thank you very much. The screening arises out of the Heritage Report and the addendum to the Heritage Report, and some comments made by the inspector upon granting outline planning permission. It doesn't seem to be intent on recording, imposing conditions as to the screening, and I just ask that you will consider whether it's appropriate to impose direct conditions on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. It's appreciated that the development of this site is an emotive issue, and that there have been a number of objections from local residents. However, most of these objections related to the principle of development and the proposed access, and as committee will be aware, this is not relevant to this reserved matters application, as outline approval has already been granted, including the main means of access into the site. This reserved matters application does not enable matters of principle or the site access to be reassessed. The issues for consideration relate to layout, scale, appearance and landscaping. The applicant has worked closely with the council officers for over a year to amend the scheme to address comments made by technical consultees and planning officers and members of the public related to these detailed matters. This has resulted in numerous amendments, and as confirmed in the officer report, there were no outstanding objections from any of the technical consultees, and the officer recommendation is that reserved matters details are now acceptable. Mr. Bryce's objection earlier is noted, and just to clarify, we did discuss the scheme. What we highlighted was what was being proposed on the actual plans, and that seemed to satisfy the concerns. We weren't suggesting changing the scheme. It is what is already on the proposals. And equally, things such as the boundary treatments and landscaping, they are already conditioned by virtue of the fact that the development would have to be completed in accordance with the landscaping plans. As to the objections relating to the principal development, as stated, that already has outline plan permission, so it isn't really a matter to be discussed here. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And it's always good to talk. It's glad you've been able to iron some things out beforehand. I've got Councillor G and Councillor Whittaker and Councillor Boardman. Councillor G.
Thank you, Chair. I'm saddened that we're in this position because this committee voted twice to reject this application. Planning Inspector upheld the council on the first one. It went again. The committee then came back to the committee. We voted again against it. The second Planning Inspector, well, I'm not going to go into what I feel on that one, but he voted that he said that it was okay. And no, it's not okay. I am saddened that it's come to this one. It is reserved matters. I will be voting against it. I'm not going to put any reasons because there's nothing I can say about it. I agree with Bob about what he said, and I'm glad that he's talked to people. Some of the things there that I'm not happy about is the flooding that they have in that area. There's a brook that goes down there. It goes down the side of Sycamore, I think it's Sycamore or Oaks, I'm not quite sure, under the railway line. And that floods, and there is a problem with the housing. And I would like assurance that they would look at the impact of the flooding into that brook, because if rainwater is sewerage, well, they say it's not sewerage, but there is proven sewerage in there. So, yes, I'm saddened. There's no reason I can give to, because we've already given the reason for refusal, but I will be voting against it.
Thanks, Chair. All I wanted to say was be grateful if the officers could ensure that the conditions that Mr Bryce alluded to and the agreements that he allegedly made with the developer are enshrined in the conditions that attach to the documentation, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a very sensitive site, this. It has been in front of this committee a couple of times, but I'll be honest with you, I'm heartened to see quite a decent design here. Really nice spatial layout of the properties. I also like the fact that the affordable housing distribution is spread around the site. Far too many times we see affordable housing on the 30%, literally clumped together in a corner, and is seen as inferior. But I love the way that this is actually integrated really well within the actual site, the wider site. I like the fact that the garden spacing is significant for each dwelling, and it means that they get a little bit of green space each, which I'm all for. So yes, I'm very happy with the details that have come forward for this application. There is actually a question for the planning officers though, and I'd just like to clarify this if possible. I've looked through the documentation submitted by the applicant, and I've just looked through the conditions, and I note that we seem to have dropped the condition where all new build houses within Chorley should meet the 19% betterment over the dwelling target emission rates. I've got that right, haven't I? Yeah, brilliant. And I know the building regs are changing, so I just want to know if you can give us a bit of an update of why that's been dropped and what the consequences of that is.
Yeah, just to clarify, that condition is on the outline, so it does still stand. It just would need to be discharged.
So it's still to be discharged?
Yeah.
That's a shame, isn't it? Another application come forward.
Councillor Weaver.
Thank you.
Wrong one. The next one.
Thank you. Just a question, really, for the planning officers. The original application was for 180 houses, of which 30% were affordable. This is for 131. Looking at that site, there's not really space to put the other 49 on. Are we saying that there are that they will not build up to 180? Is there any more coming next week?
Yeah, so just to clarify on that, It'll be 149 in total, but 18 have still to come forward because they're self and custom builds. So the application is proposing less than it has, because the outline is for up to 180. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I think the principle for development's already been established with the outline application. I see no issue with these reserved matters application here, and I'm quite happy to propose officer recommendations. Thank you.
I'll be very quick, just to agree totally with Councillor Boardman. Yeah, people objected to it in the first place, but I think I made a best of a bad job, but I think it's a much better best of a bad job. It's a good layout, and I hope other developers will look at the spread of that affordable housing, and because up to now the norm is to stick it somewhere at the furthest corner of a development with as far away from amenities as possible. So I like this, and I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to say anything? I was going to ask that. Thank you, Councillor Boardman. No? Okay, can we move to the vote, please? All those in favour? Against? Abstention? He's putting his hand up. No, it's just button doesn't work. Okay. Can we?
Yeah, sorry. So the outcome of the vote is it's been resolved that the reserve matters is granted, subject to conditions and subject to the completion of a supplemental section 106 or unilateral undertaking to ensure that the reserve matters is bound by agreement.
Thank you. If you want to go now, you can. You don't have to stay. Moving on. Item 3C, Botany Bay Boatyard. Yeah. Botany Bay Boatyard, pages 117 to 154. Recommendation remains the same as the original report. Ian's going to present this item, and there are no registered speakers. Off you go, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 3 buildings comprising 10 mixed-use employment units supporting offices and light industrial, storage and distribution and general industrial uses with some provision for a shop or cafe. The application site comprises a boat repair and storage yard and is located to the north-east of the Leeds and Liverpool Canal, west of Blackburn Brow, and is within the settlement area. The site is allocated for mixed-use housing and employment development within the Chorley local plan, and the proposal is therefore considered to be acceptable in principle overall. An employment development on this part of the allocation is considered to be a suitable use in the context of surrounding features and nearby land uses. The development would be prominent when viewed from the Canal towpath and would have the appearance of a modern industrial estate. The scale of the units would, however, be modest, and they will be set back from the Canal side and separated from it by the car park, whilst changes in levels and features around the site are such that it would be well contained and concealed from other viewpoints. As such, the development wouldn't appear unduly prominent and would have an appropriate appearance for the planned use of the site. The nearby residential properties are located at Botany Bay to the east. These don't share a boundary with the application site and they're separated from it by other land. The proposed buildings themselves are not considered to result in any adverse impact on the amenity of the occupiers of these dwellings, given their scale, design and relative positioning. It's noted that concerns have been raised in relation to noise and disturbance from the use of the site. A noise assessment has been submitted in support of the proposal, and it's been reviewed by the Council's Environmental Health Officer, who raises no objection, subject to the imposition of conditions limiting hours and requiring details of any fixed plant that might be installed in the future. The site would be accessed from Blackburn Brow via Botany Bay, as it is presently, while 74 parking spaces will be provided, in addition to parking that would be reorganised for the public house. Lancashire County Council Highways considered that this would be an acceptable arrangement and that it wouldn't be harmful to highway safety, subject to the provision of a suitable scheme for site access and off-site works of highway improvements. Drainage impacts have been assessed by the lead local flood authority and are considered to be acceptable, subject to the provision of a detailed drainage plan. Other matters are acceptable, subject to conditions, and are covered in detail within the committee report. Overall, the application is considered to be acceptable in accordance with the policies of the development plan and is recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Ian. Over to you, members. Councillor Lowe, Councillor Marwood, Councillor Boardman. Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Chair. If I start as one of the ward councillors, I've not necessarily got a problem too much with this application because, as the officer has stated, there's no comment from Lancashire Highways to validate, in effect, a refusal. It's as far as the planning considerations from paragraph 19 onwards that the weight of to give approval is there unless there's exceptional circumstances. I noticed in the report on one of, I think it was the addendum sheet, about a suggestion for a site visit, but I, for one, have got enough information in the report with the plans, and it's very difficult to put forward a refusal, bearing in mind that the principle of development has been established because it's an existing, in effect, light employment site. There's no objection from Lancashire County Council Highways, and in fact there'll be mitigation measures. I note on board the comments in the report about the proposals with regard to disabled parking. So with that, Chair, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Councillor Marwood.
Thank you, Chair. Likewise, yes, generally speaking, this is an improvement on what's there now. I'm happy to second the proposal. I am a little disappointed only in the fact that I think it's unfortunate the applicant couldn't perhaps have included the Boatyard cruise business in his future plans. It's been a long-standing business, and I think that if that goes, I think it will be a loss to Chorley, and I hope that maybe he can find another suitable berth. But generally speaking, yes, I'm happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as Councillor Morwood said, it's a shame to see an old boatyard next to a canal disappearing, but it is a previously developed site. We've got to move with the times, unfortunately, and you know, it will provide much needed business space for the workers in Chorley, and will encourage some further employment on that site. So I'm all for it, and I'll second it if it's already not been seconded.
Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, when you see what's there at the moment, apart from the little cruises, which is a shame, this is an improvement. I don't see that it will impact terribly on the highways, and there's some mitigation work going on there. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Councillor G.
Thank you, Chair. I am concerned about the loss of a tourist attraction in the area. I mean, if my memory serves me correct, the boatyard used to belong to the applicant that's applying for these buildings now. He sold it on to someone else, and now that he's putting planning permission, asking for planning permission to redevelop this area. It's sad that an applicant can get rid of a business to make money. I know it's not a planning application reason, but it's a sad world when that happens. And I can't see where the boatyard can relocate. It's quite big, so I just don't know where it is. I believe, again I might be wrong, that there is a private legal matter between the two of them, which goes up. Again, it's not a planning matter. So I'm sad that this happened. I'm sad that it's come to this. And I'm sure if the applicant could have negotiated, they could have done something about it. But so there's no reason that I can object to it. So.
Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Chair. I always like to look at the representations why people are objecting, but I think in this case there are more of the objections are absolutely irrelevant. It's saying about people being made homeless. I'm not quite sure from where they're being made homeless. And as regard the Boat Hotel, do we know whether the company plan to stay on? Do they want to stay on, or are they going to fold anyway? So, okay, thank you.
Just a quick clarification, Chair. The applicant owns the boatyard. He just doesn't. He's leased the boat hotel party cruises out to another business. So that's just for clarification. He does own the boatyard, and hence why he's putting this application in.
Anybody else wish to comment? If not, we'll move to the vote. Okay, please.
Sorry,
Can't vote there.
Okay.
So the outcome is that it's recommended that planning permission is granted subject to conditions.
Okay. So item D, E, F, G, H have all been withdrawn. Apparently we're waiting for various reports to come back to us. So moving on to I, 3I, Rivington Hall Barn and Park Rivington Hall, Rivington Lane, pages 155 to 176. Ian's going to present this item. I've no registered speakers. Off you go, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the change of use of land to enable the siting of 4 shepherd's huts to provide overnight wedding accommodation and associated works, including the provision of a gravel access path and landscaping. The site comprises a grassed area within the curtilage of Rivington Hall and Barn, which are listed buildings, and are within Lever Park, which is in the Greenbelt. The application site is previously developed land by virtue of its location within the curtilage of the hall and barn. The framework and local plan allow for the redevelopment of such sites on the proviso that the development doesn't have a greater impact on openness. In this instance, the presence of the shepherd's huts would impact on Greenbelt openness by comparison with the currently open site, which is free from development. And therefore, the development is contrary to the framework and must be considered inappropriate development. As the proposal is considered to be an appropriate development, the tests of paragraph 148 of the framework are engaged. This sets out that very special circumstances will not exist unless the harm to the Greenbelt by reason of inappropriateness and any other harm is clearly outweighed by other considerations. The applicant has advanced a case setting out that the development is necessary to secure the long-term sustainability of the wedding venue business at the site, which provides a viable use for the Grade 2 star listed Rivington Hall. The proposal would thereby protect existing employment, whilst the continued viability of the business would ensure that Rivington Hall continues to benefit from the investment generated by the use of the building for wedding parties. Together, these factors are considered to carry significant weight that would amount to the very special circumstances required to overcome the definitional harm to the Greenbelt, which must be accorded substantial weight in line with the framework. The site is within the designated open space, public open space of Lever Park. It is a small area of the open space that doesn't support a specific recreational function. The use of the land wouldn't preclude public access, and would not have a discernible impact on the recreational capacity of Lever Park overall. There'd be no impact on the setting of the listed buildings subject to the implementation of the proposed landscaping scheme, which would also ensure that the impact of the development on the character of the area is suitably limited. The proposal is considered to be acceptable in all other respects, and other issues are covered in detail in the committee report. Overall, the benefits of the proposed development are such that, on balance, it's considered that the application is acceptable in line with the provisions of the development plan and is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, over to you, members. Councillor Morwood, Councillor Boardman.
Happy to approve this, Chair.
Councillor Boardman.
Yes, Chair, I just note the Rivington Parish Council's comment that they believe this may set a precedent to thrown out accommodation. I don't think that's the case. I think this one demonstrates very special circumstances, and what's not more special than getting married, basically, and then sleeping in a shepherd's hut. Couldn't think of anything better. So second the application and the approval.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy with this. My first concern, I like to think about the environment. But hey-ho, you've got Rivington Barn a few feet away, a few yards away. So far from me thinking about, well, what about the revellers in the shepherds' huts? I'm sure there will be plenty of revellers around Rivington Barn. And of course, schools use it too for the leavers dues, and there's car park there. I can't see that it will be of any detriment. Thank you, Chair.
I keep thinking he wants to say something. Got you? Okay. Yeah.
So it's been resolved unanimously that planning permission will be granted subject to conditions.
Thank you. Item 3J, Canal Mill, Botany Bay, pages 177 to 192. Ian's going to present this item, and I've no registered speakers. Ian.
Thanks, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for the temporary use of land for the storage of commercial vehicles and is a retrospective application. The application site comprises land either side of Canal Mill at Botany Bay, which is within the settlement area to the east of the M61 motorway. The land's allocated for employment uses within the Chorley local plan, and therefore the principle of development is acceptable. The applicant has advanced a case in support of the application on the basis that the use would be for a temporary period of time only, in response to an urgent need to store vehicles that are part way through the production process at Leyland Daft Trucks and are awaiting specialist parts that have been severely delayed due to supply chain issues. Once those parts become available, then the vehicles can return to the production line. The use of the land doesn't represent the type or quantum of employment development that's envisaged by the local plan at this site. However, on the basis that the use will be temporary and involves no physical development, it's not considered that any grant of planning permission in this instance would prevent the comprehensive redevelopment of the site for large-scale employment development in the future. Although the stored vehicles are visible from a distance, the visual impact's not significantly greater than the parking of vehicles that took place previously, whilst the site was in retail use. The impact on residential amenities is limited due to the separation of the site from residential dwellings. There'll be no unacceptable levels of disturbance as vehicle movements are limited to when the vehicles arrived and when they will eventually leave, which is a short-lived temporary impact. Highway impacts of the development have been assessed by County Council Highways. They consider it to be acceptable. All other matters are acceptable subject to conditions and are covered in detail within the committee report. Overall, the application is considered to be acceptable in accordance with the policy of the development plan and is recommended for approval subject to a condition setting a time limit for the consent to 3 years. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor G, Councillor Heaton.
Thanks, Chair. Seeing that it's been there for over 6 months, nearly a year, I'm quite happy to move the recommendation.
Councillor Heaton.
I'll second it. I was going to move it, but Councillor G got there before me.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. No problem with this. it's just a pity that it is retrospective and that they didn't go down the line of actually putting the application in right at the start. The second point, paragraph 6 of the report, and the cynical part of me looks forward to the Botany Bay Business Park application that will come to members in due course. But if anything of the previous planning history of the entire site is to be believed, don't hold your breath that even if we grant permission, that will be forthcoming, because we've given them permission for a shopping village, that disappeared, and now this one comes forward. But that's the cynic in me, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. There's a bit of cynicism in me too. It's supposed to be for 3 years. What contingency plans are there? I mean, I'm assuming Brexit is has an impact on supplying the parts. I might be wrong, but I'm taking that assumption. Well, but are there any contingency plans for them after the 3 years, or will it just go on and on? Thank you, Chair.
So, if towards the end of the 3 years the development is still, the vehicles are still on the site, then potentially the council could take enforcement action if they haven't been removed and if they haven't made an application to extend that time limit or come on with some other type of application to store vehicles on the site. So the council does have the option to fall back on enforcement action if those vehicles haven't been moved and no application's been forthcoming. Thanks, Chair.
Couldn't possibly, Chair.
Thank you. My understanding of this is, we're on about parts, one of them is chips. Now, those vehicles are sat there brand new. Well, it is planning. It's there as a temporary thing, and they're trying to sell those vehicles. Those vehicles are temporarily sold, so that it will be temporary.
I'm trying to move progress.
Thank you.
The 3 years, is that, it's been there for 6 months, if not more. So just for clarification, this is 3 years from now or 3 years from when they started it? Thank you, Chair. And also, I'm sorry if we're holding you up, but then, we spent an hour on the first one.
Does it mean to say we've got to spend an hour on this one?
No, but if it warrants it, which it doesn't.
No. Can we move progress, please?
Certainly. I look forward to the planning application coming forward, and that we're not held to ransom in that if we don't pass the Botany Bay development, this lorry park continues for years and years and years. And I look forward to seeing Chorley trying to remove one by one all these lorries. But anyway, I've made my point. Thank you.
So the outcome is that it's been resolved unanimously that planning permission for the temporary use of land is approved, subject to conditions.
Thank you, Chair. The application seeks planning permission for the conversion of 2 existing vacant buildings, formerly 2 retail units and 1 flat, into 4 one-bed self-contained flats, with associated works including the partial demolition of single-storey rear outriggers and external alterations. The site lies within the settlement of Coppull and will provide housing in a sustainable location with access to amenities, services and transport, and policy is supportive of housing in such areas. Parking is not proposed as part of the scheme, however on-street parking could be utilised and as mentioned, the site is situated within a sustainable location. Cycle parking is provided as part of the scheme to promote sustainable modes of transport, and Lancashire County Council Highways raise no objection to the application. The proposal is acceptable in design terms and would be a compatible form of development with neighbouring residential uses. The proposed development is considered to be in accordance with the policies of the development plan and is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the report and a legal agreement to secure financial contributions towards improvements to children's play areas in the area. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Right, over to you, Councillor Boardman.
Put the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Hilton, Councillor Sherwood.
I think it'll be an improvement on what's there. It's just a shame that the dwellings are so small looking at it, but it is an improvement on what's there. So yeah, I'm in favour of this. Thanks.
Councillor Sherwood.
It is an improvement, and it's the way forward. If buildings are not being used, they do it in other towns and other cities that they utilise it as accommodation. So, yep.
Anybody else wish to comment? If not, I'll move to the vote. Whatever way. Okay.
So it's been resolved unanimously that planning permission is remanded to be approved and granted subject to conditions and a section 106 legal agreement relating to commuted sums towards improvements to identify the sites that are low quality and or low value with the accessibility catchment area and follow the recommendation in the addendum.
Okay. Item L, the Boatyard, Bolton Road, Hoghton, pages 215 to 254, with an update on your addendum. Amy's going to present this item, and I have no registered speakers. Amy.
The application seeks planning permission for the erection of a two-storey office building and change of use of the former annex building from ancillary accommodation to flexible uses within Class E, such as financial services, professional services and offices. This would include car parking and landscaping of the site and the demolition of the remains of the former Grill and Grain public house, which has suffered significant fire damage. The proposed two-storey office building would be in a similar location to the former pub and would be set back from the canal. Given the levels on site, the main entrance would be at first floor level. The former annex would be converted into 2 commercial units, and parking would be provided for the office to the southern area of the site, with parking for the commercial units to the frontage, and parking for the marina would be provided to the eastern part of the site. The existing car parking along the canal would be removed and replaced with a landscaping grassed area. The proposal is for a main town centre use, and the applicant has provided a sequential test which is considered to have been passed, and therefore the principle of the uses accords with the relevant policies. The site falls wholly within the green belt, as defined by the Chorley Local Plan Policies map, and constitutes inappropriate development in the green belt. It would have a greater impact on the openness of the green belt than the existing development. However, very special circumstances are identified to justify the proposal, which includes the delivery of a high quality and well-designed solution to the current vacant and derelict site. It would also provide a high-quality sympathetic design which reflects the historical use of the site as a boatyard, whilst also minimising its impact by the topography of the site. It would also remove a significant area of hard standing adjacent to the canal and provide landscaping to improve biodiversity and the visual amenity of the canal side. The proposal would also deliver a range of employment opportunities, which is a clear benefit of the scheme. There would be no detriment to the amenity of the area in terms of scale, appearance, character, noise, nuisance, disturbance or impact on highway safety, nor would there be unacceptable impacts on ecology or drainage. It is recommended that the application is approved, subject to the suggested conditions and referral to the Secretary of State. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Fond memories of the Boatyard when it was open in the past. It used to be a good night out on Friday nights. DJ, karaoke and all that, you know. But I actually went past the site a week or two ago when just to see what was happened to the place. But I'm glad to see there's an application interest to build, to tidy the site up and build something on there. There is a boatyard there. That's been retained, is it, the marina? Yeah. So the guy from Botany Bay might be able to moor up at the boatyard if he gets thrown off. Okay, I'll move the recommendation, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm not normally a supporter of applications in the Greenbelt where it significantly increases the volume of the building that's there. However, I think the building design is really appropriate for the setting. It is sympathetic to the surrounding area. The reduction in the hard standing is significant, and I think the use of landscaping and regeneration of some of the green areas by the canal is pretty good. So I'll happily support the application.
Thank you. Thanks for Cheryl. No, you indicated you wanted to speak. Oh, did I? Right, I'll move to the vote, please. Whatever way you can. Okay. Yeah.
So the outcome is that it's been resolved unanimously that planning permission is granted subject to conditions as outlined in the addendum.
Okay, thank you. I have no urgent business. Thank you for your forbearance. Sorry.
Is it okay if we just confirm if we're happy with the minutes from the last meeting? We've not addressed it.
Oh, did we not do
No,
that?
sorry.
It's not on my list, that's why. No, it went, apologies. And it's not on my list. Can we move the minutes of the previous planning meeting, please? All those in favour? We've all shown that way, sorry.
So it's fine.
Sorry about that. But it wasn't, it's not on my script, you see, so I stick to my script. Thank you. Well spotted. Good evening, everybody, and have a safe journey home.